Hello, my name is Peter, and I'm the author of the Tolgee Swift SDK. And I would like to quickly show you how to integrate Tolgee SDK with a more complex sample app. So what we have here is a shameless ripoff of a good old Twitter app. As you can see, there's a timeline of tweets, search, notifications, and my profile. The app is written in SwiftUI. And here I have the app running in SwiftUI. As you can see, the title isn't rendering here for some reason. It seems to be a SwiftUI preview bug. One cool feature about SwiftUI previews is that it can be configured to preview your app in different configurations, light mode, dark mode, different devices, and different localizations. So in here, if I switch from English to say Portuguese, the app is in Portuguese, or Czech, works. That's the three languages we have this sample app localized to. And outside of that, the app currently uses the native, Apple localization. The localized strings are divided into multiple files because that often tends to be the case with production apps. And production apps also tend to be modularized. So there's this extra package that also contains some localization files that are being used in the main app. Another thing we're using is a recent feature where instead of providing the keys as raw strings, we have them generated in a typesafe way. The only issue with that is that the generated typesafe APIs are internal. So if you have strings in a separate package that you want to expose publicly, so you can consume them in another package or the main app, you kind of need to do it yourself with a wrapper like this. So that's what we're using. Now, what we're going to do is that we are going to migrate from using standard Apple localization to using Tolgee SDK. For that, let me switch to a separate branch and let's go through the changes. While this preview is loading, okay, there we go. So, as you can see, the preview still works, except for the bug with the title that was there. Anyway, and what's important is that we didn't lose any of the features that SwiftUI previews provide. We can still switch to Portuguese or Czech. We didn't lose that. Okay, let's take a look what we've done. We integrate Tolgee SDK. We expose the injected local because we needed few places. I will show where in a second. And as we go through the code, so for navigation title, so what Tolgee provides out of the box is a replacement for text called Tolgee text. It's a drop-in replacement. So if you can include text somewhere, you can just replace it with Tolgee text and you're good to go. In case of label, you need to use the variant that instead of a raw string takes a view, and that works just fine as well. In case of a title, there isn't really an API that variant that would take a view instead of a string, so we need to kind of fall back to using the SDK directly. And this returns a strings, and for that, if we provide a local, it uses the local that you provide, and that's how we can keep the functionality that all these things work in SwiftUI previews and can be overloaded. Now, another thing is that using these type safe APIs is currently not supported by the SDK, but there are extensions that you can use. ontology text. So what it generates is this localized string resource that you can use. One problem with that and why it's still not included with shipped with the SDK, even though we're planning to do that, is when you have pluralized strings. Unfortunately, yes, for that we use the old hard-coded string currently, because if you take a look at localized string resource, unfortunately there isn't currently any publicly exposed API to get the params from localized strings. If you have an instance and you kind of dump it, you can see that the data is in there, but it's not publicly exposed. So that's why it cannot be used, but you can use it for regular strings without that don't have any parameters, which is vast majority of the strings you will have in your app. So that works. And now imagine a scenario where you've built an app like Twitter, and you sell it. Someone buys it, and that someone insists of renaming the app from Twitter to X, and tweets should be posts, that kind of stuff. Now, how you can use Tolgee SDK for that is Tolgee SDK actually allows you to do over-the-air updates of strings without having to update your application. Now, how do you do that? If we take a look at the entry point of the app, you can see that here we initialize the SDK with an URL to a CDN and provided namespaces that Tolgee supports. So if we go to the Tolgee website, this is the sample app, and here you can see that here's all the translations, and we are using namespaces. So we have namespaces such as notifications, profile, search. Basically, they match the names of files that we have here. And then if you go to developer settings, here you can enable CDN. So we initialize the SDK with the CDN and the list of namespaces. And then what we do on app startup is that we call remote fetch, which fetches the data from the CDN and uses it instead of what is the app shipped with. So now if we restart the app, you will see that tweets are posts, and search tweets is now search posts. That has all been replaced. If we go back to translations, yes, you can see that it's overwritten here. Okay, so this is how you can use Tolgee SDK with a more complex app, whether it's a good old UIKit app or a SwiftUI app. We have very good integrations where you don't need to sacrifice any features or workflows you're used to if you decide to integrate Tolgee SDK into your app. Thank you.